everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm sitting down with Christine, our experienced attorney, to talk about evaluating your damages when you have a legal dispute. I've prepared a few questions to ask Christine to help us understand this better. So let's dive in. What are damages? Is my first question. My second question would be, how does one calculate damages that you can't really quantify, like emotional distress? How do you figure out these types of damages? And lastly, my last question would be, how does someone prove damages? What kind of evidence do you need to make sure they're recognized in a case?
Hi, Lizette. I am going to do my best to provide an audio of the question Q&A that we prepared somewhat for relative to damages. So what are damages? So damages in a lawsuit versus like damage to a car. We kind of know what that means, right? Damage to a car means something got hurt. And damages, while it seems like a straightforward type of term, is not always understood by folks. How they are calculated or what they are, because they're called different things. So we have what are called compensatory damages, right? Or basically the harm that you were caused. So these are things like that you can actually quantify, like a medical bill or a repair bill for a car. Maybe loss of your income because of, something related to, I guess the subject of a lawsuit, whatever that would be. If it's a car wreck, if it's a car repair because you had to leave your job and take the car back. A loss of time with family sometimes is something that you can quantify and you can't. Missed out vacation, you paid for a vacation, now you can't do it because your RV doesn't work. Those are the kinds of things that are quantifiable. General or special damages, these are things that aren't quantifiable. These are like emotional distress from not having a car, pain and suffering because of maybe you were actually hurt somehow. You can't sleep. And these are the types of damages that it's up to a jury to decide, how long you had to deal with something that was the source of this type of damage. And it's up to them. Sometimes they're given a per diem. Is the stress from this worth $100 a day? Is it worth $10 a day? And so it's up to a jury to ultimately decide, what the value is to compensate you for that type of harm. Then we come to punitive damages. These are intended to punish the bad actor, whoever caused the harm, because it was very egregious and intentional, or it was so reckless, like they just didn't really pay attention to what they should be paying attention to. Like when something obvious, like a car inspection, prior to selling it to you, it was pretty obvious that there was tons of oil leaking. And then they said, well, we didn't check the oil. That's the kind of, hinting on fraud and deception where you can get punitive damages to punish essentially the wrongdoer and to deter that kind of conduct in the community at large so that other folks won't commit the same types of acts. And how those are quantified, they can sometimes be a multiplier of the actual damages, maybe double the damages or 1 times the damages. Again, this is up to a jury. Whether or not you are, what type of damages you have access to depends on the type of claim you have. People often think of attorney's fees as damages, which they're not usually decided by the jury. They're decided by the judge. And a lot of the claims that are in consumer protection provide for a prevailing, that means a winning plaintiff the person who's suing, if they do win, they get to recover reasonable legal fees and costs. But again, you have to apply to the court for those, and you have to show, that the fees were reasonable. But it is an incentive to help folks, resolve the situation before you have to go and file a fee petition or file a lawsuit. These types of damages, when they're pointed out to the bad actor, can help them decide, maybe it is better to resolve this without a lawsuit because of that potential risk of these various types of damages. And when you're preparing for a lawsuit, you're going to need to either testify and provide documents or both about the various types of damages to help your case. You may need a witness to also testify to, for example, a repair record and that kind of thing. I hope that was helpful. So, how does one calculate damages like emotional distress? And how do you figure these types of damages? And that type of question, these aren't quantifiable. As I said in my prior answer in explaining damages, they're for the jury to decide. We prove them through testimony of people who witnessed the damage. If somebody is suffering from distress because they lost their car, or their car doesn't work, or something that they just purchased is not functioning, the HVAC system, and they're suffering from that, or they can't, they have to live elsewhere. All these types of stressors, people who observe the folks that are suffering can testify to that. Family members, friends, co-workers, colleagues. And then as far as other types of stress and so forth, the witnesses, the folks that incur the harm, can testify. But sometimes that's a hard thing to do. It's usually observers that are the better person to provide testimony as far as those types of damages. And then as far as other types of damages, documents and experts sometimes can also, for the types of emotional distress or how things can affect a person, how a poor credit report affects a person over the long term, that may need an expert who is in the credit industry and can identify specific things about the industry. So sometimes you'll need an expert to actually help quantify on a daily or annual basis, a specific type of harm that is not a specific number. And then calculating things is usually adding things up that you can, and then getting testimony and maybe an expert for the things that you can't. What kind of evidence? I have been kind of repeating myself over the prior two answers, but it's usually documents, testimony, and testimony of factual witnesses, people who have observed the harm, and then experts who evaluate the type of harm, are experts in their field, a psychiatrist, a doctor for emotional distress, and then perhaps, other folks who can see the damage to a car and say, the car that you bought doesn't have the value that you paid for because of all these things wrong, and going in and documenting that type of damage. If you're living in a home and the party or the company that was responsible for fixing things, right? Maybe you had a fire, maybe you had water damage, and they come in and they don't do a good job. You have to have someone that come in and point out all those things that are wrong and how much it's going to cost to fix it. That's where you need, more of an expert type of damage evaluation. And they may need to provide testimony and be deposed as well if you file a lawsuit. But having that report might help you negotiate, with whomever you're trying to resolve a dispute with when it comes to damages. And then yourself, whatever you can speak to as far as what you observe as a factual witness. A witness to anything in a lawsuit needs to have personal knowledge and be qualified, unless they're an expert and then they have the qualifications and they're able to come up with a process for evaluation that is verified. And but any witness that is brought forward can be objected to and so forth. So that's how litigation works in general when in speaking about damages.
Thank you, Christine. Those are my questions for today, but I'd love to hear from all of you. What would you like to know about evaluating damages? Drop your questions in the comments and we'll make sure to cover them in our future video. Thanks so much for watching, and as always, don't forget to like, subscribe and share this video with anyone who might find it helpful. See you next time.